In this video, we're gonna make this bowl right here, which it turned out okay. I'll have some pictures of it at the end. But what's more entertaining is gonna be this 15-minute video, which is longer than most of my videos. I pretty much did everything wrong you can do on this bowl, and it didn't really turn out that good for that reason, but it's a learning curve, and this is probably one of the more complicated segmented bowls that I've ever done. This definitely is. And in the process, I managed to get 3 stitches from a giant splinter, which I'll show in the video, of course. And I've exploded some ring segments, cut some ring segments too thin, such as this one, and it still looks kind of cool. I hope you take the time to watch the whole video and maybe learn from some of my awful mistakes. I cut this pine board into strips so that I can start making my bowl segments. So each of these pieces I'm cutting right now is 1 inch thick. I'm gonna cut these segments on my jig that I made a while back, and basically it's built off of like one of those standard miter slides that comes with your saw, and I just added a piece of plywood with that. And so what I've done here, I set this one right here 15 degrees from the blade, and then to get this other one 15 degrees from the blade in the other direction, I used a 30 degree, a little 30 degree triangle to set in here. And so what that did was it made sure that these were 30 degrees to each other, because I want a 15 degree angle cut on the edge of each of these. So that way when I glue it up, they make a 30 degree angle, and it takes 12 sides to make a ring for the segmented ring. And so that's how I set this up. And it's a pretty common approach to cutting segments out. And I'm sure you can find videos that explain it a lot better than I can. But that's the method that I use for this. And for the mounting, it's pretty much just a screw here where that little disc goes, and then it's just screwed into a piece of oak that's like a sacrificial fence kind of attachment. So when I set this to cut my first ring, you never want to use your fence as a stop block when doing this, because what can happen, your piece can bind between the fence and the blade, especially when it's at an angle like this, and it can kick that piece back, which is pretty dangerous. So what I do is just put a little scrap piece here. That way when I cut it, there's a good bit of room between it and the fence. And of course I won't cut it this long. I'm gonna make it a segment size. So basically to size the segments that I make, I just kind of guess the first one, and if it's too big, then I use it towards the top of the bowl. So here's that piece I just cut, and you can tell here it's just held together with a rubber band, but it's a really tight joinery, and it's gonna be some good glue surface when I actually glue it up. I plan on this one though, I want to change this bowl up a little bit, make it a little bit different, and I want to put a little thin strip of mahogany right here to give it some contrast. And if I do that with each ring and stagger it, I think that'll look really cool. It takes a lot of extra time, but I don't want to just make any ordinary bowl here. So I now have the pieces in their respected groups, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into their rings and number them, and then I'll take them apart and I'll put the mahogany between each one. So now I'm going to cut those mahogany strips I was just talking about. Oh, and I need to mention that I'm gluing the mahogany pieces on the left side of every segment. Most of the clamps actually have a groove over there, like on the right side, that will stick to that corner, and then the other side of the clamp will just press that on, and it actually works pretty good. It's pretty simple to do. So now I need to take care of this of these mahogany pieces, and basically I'm just gonna flush it up on all sides so it acts like one large segment pretty much. For this next ring right here, I've actually made this little jig, and it's not my idea. I got this idea for this little jig offline, someone else's YouTube channel. But basically how it works is the string goes through a hole in the jig, and then the jig right here butts up against the piece and keeps it all flat. And it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. You can tell here this jig is getting a pretty good amount of squeeze out, but I still need to press it flat on this on the table saw surface, so let me do that right now. Now I'm gonna cut each of these rings into 3 smaller rings, and each of these smaller rings is actually going to be the thickness of a piece of one of these little mahogany pieces that I put between it. So they're gonna be fairly thin, and I want a good edge to ride against the table saw fence as I cut them. And so I'm just gonna sand one edge flat. Now I already lined up one edge on each ring to be the flattest one, and now I'm just gonna sand it to make it really flat. Okay, now I'm gonna run my flat edge against the fence, and what I've done here is I haven't raised the blade too high, because if the blade's not perfectly 90 degrees, which it hardly ever is perfectly, then I don't want that little discrepancy to line up and then make an uneven circle. So I just have it a little bit over one segment. That way I can cut it on every other couple segments. I have a couple little mistakes in here, but what happened was I was going around most of it, and then it started getting loose. So then the last couple of places I cut, the blade did its own thing right here. And so I think what I'm gonna do next time is leave like 3 little tabs on it, and then I'm gonna leave 3 little tabs on it, and then go down with the handsaw and cut those tabs loose so that I have a nice finish. Okay, so this really didn't go good at all on this ring, but the table saw is not the answer. I figured that one out, and the bandsaw seemed to work okay until you notice there was gonna be 3 of these. Well, it caught the second one and tore it apart, so there's now only 2 on this last layer, which I mean, it'll be okay in the end. But I think I'm gonna try to cut the rest of them on the bandsaw. I'm not gonna quite give up on this idea yet. I still salvage this, even though that's really not even at all right there. I can still just glue it like so that this is the top of the bowl, and that will just probably turn mostly out anyway. And this next one's actually pretty flat. This right here is what I ended up as the third one. It's way too thin to do anything with, but it looks cool, I guess. It's kind of has some saw blade marks, but just, I mean, if I put this in there, it would just turn right out, and there's really no point of that. I'm gonna go ahead and glue them together. That way I can just glue parts of the bowl at a time, because these are really fragile. Okay, now I'm just taking this one straight to the bandsaw. This is the next ring, and you know, hopefully this one goes a lot better. I'm gonna have this micro jig just right here, hopefully preventing it from slipping for the most part, and I'm just gonna keep it as firm as I can against the fence. You know what, it's really wavy, and it's just not working as good as I thought it was. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a couple more of those little thin segments, just pretty much out of this segment right here. And if those keep going pretty bad like they are, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna glue those together with the ones I already got. And then I'm just gonna do the first 3 segments all normal, and we're gonna call this a feature ring at the very top. So I was clamping this up right here, and I had, you know, whatever, 50-pound pipe clamps on either side, and they were kind of working against each other, and you could tell all 4 of these little bitty segments just broke right apart, which, you know, can't really be that surprising. And luckily they broke where the joints are, sorta, so I can try to put some glue there and then stack them back on. But it looks like that this one right here is kind of gone, because I can't even find this segment. But when that broke right there, it broke again after that, and so it was in like 8 different pieces. And you know, I was about ready just to give up on that segment and make a 3-ring tall bowl, but I put like 150 pounds on it and just bathed it in glue. And you know, it's the very edge, it's the very end of the layer. So if I get it on the lathe tomorrow and it looks bad, then I'll just keep turning it and turn it all the way off. Or if it's just falling apart on me, then I'll just turn it off then. But I might as well give it a shot, because I spent a lot of time making it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out the circle to put on the sacrificial little piece to put on the chuck, so that I can put this on first thing in the morning. To get that big chunk to put on the lathe, I'm just gonna trace out a circle that's about the right size. It's not really critical as long as it's, I want it to be cypress to match the wood, but that's about the only specification I have, so I can go cut this circle in the bend. So after I got all my broken bowl segments out of the way, now I can glue this onto the bottom side of my bowl and let it dry overnight. Now I'm gonna eyeball the center and mount the lathe faceplate on. So I'm looking at this here, and you know there's a good bit of voids in it, but if I start turning it and it looks bad, then we'll cut it off. So up close now, there's some pretty big cracks, and that's not even the biggest one. But see if you can find some. I mean, there's one. But I think it might be worth saving. I'm gonna grab some glue and some sawdust, throw it in there, and just give that a shot. Cause it's not really the look I was looking for right now. So even if it had worked, it wouldn't have really been the look I'm trying to get, you know. But I mean, I think it looks pretty cool with the grain going all chaotic at the top. And might be worth salvaging if I can patch some of those. So now I'm just gonna do what I said and fill these cracks with glue and sawdust. Now usually people say you need to use like super fine sawdust, like the kind that you sand with. But honestly, if I look at this dust right here that I just turned off, it has fine dust in it. It's not 100% fine dust, but it has fine dust in it. So I'm just gonna grab that and throw it on, and fine dust will get in that crack. Now, the way to get the glue in the crack is a little bit trickier. I prefer just to put the glue over it and then manipulate it in by blowing it in. Now, that usually works for me. Putting that glue there, I can just hit it with some sandpaper real quick. I had a pretty good little catch on my hand, and I'll put a big picture on the screen. But anyway, I have a really big splinter, like 2-inch splinter on my hand. And before I drive like an hour to the doctor, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the bowl because, you know, I really like, I think, how it's going. So I'm gonna finish it up. I'm in it for the long haul. Flatten up this bottom here and then put some finish on it. So I still got this, you know, gaping splinter in my hand, but I'm gonna finish this up so I can go get some medical attention for it because, you know, it's not coming out. I've been pulling it with some pliers and everything, and it's not gonna come out without some serious forces. Definitely don't like how the base turned out. It's really bad. I might even come back and paint it. It's that bad. So I've just taped off the bottom right here, and I'm painting it brown because I really did not like how it took that stain. And so I'm painting that brown. Just got back from the doctor, got 3 stitches where that big splinter went in. But well, at least that's out of my hand now.